Sussman is the co-author of well over 200 published and recorded songs, written for dozens of artists, films, television programs, and stage musicals. The majority of these projects were written this collaborative 40 years, Barry Manilow. For the stage, he's the author of the book and lyrics for Harmony, a new musical, which recently Joy Triumphant runs at the Alliance Theater in Atlanta, the Amundsen Theater in Los Angeles. Acclaimed as a glorious work of art, the show is now preparing for a future life as a commercial production, with sites set on a certain iconic Manhattan Boulevard. He's also co-authored the scores for Ted Tally's Coming Attractions, Wendy Wasserstein's Miami, both produced off-Broadway by Andre Bishop at Playwrights Horizons, New York. His songs have been featured in numerous stage reviews, including The Madwoman of Central Park West, Tuxedos for Hire, and the long-running off-Broadway and London productions of Whoop-De-Doo. With Mr. Manilow, he wrote the song scores for the animated feature films, The Pebble and the Penguin, Thumbelina, and Disney's Oliver and Company. He's particularly proud to have written a song with Mr. Manilow for the network televised bicentennial of the United States Constitution. The song, Let Freedom Ring, was later performed at the televised inaugural gala for President Clinton. His songs have been featured in over a dozen feature films and have been recorded by an array of pop, jazz, country, and international artists, earning Grammy Awards and multiple gold and platinum records from around the world. Recordings of his songs have sold in excess of 50 million copies. As a graduate of Franklin Marshall College in the class of 1971, he founded the vocal singing group, Four Richards, in November of 1968, which still thrives. Though there was no music major offered at F&M at the time, and no student officially graduated with a major in music until 1986, Bruce took every music course offered in the catalog, and thanks to the efforts of music department chair Hugh Galt, he also completed a series of special tutorial courses that were created for him so he could graduate with the equivalency of a music major, allowing him to apply to graduate programs of music. As a result, he was accepted at New York University School of Music on full fellowship. Joining Mr. Sussman and me on stage for today's Common Hour panel discussion are my colleagues, Kurt Benzel, Associate Chair of German, Matt Butterfield, Associate Chair of Music and Chair of the Music Department, and Carol Davis, Associate Professor of Theater and current Chair of the Theater, Dance, and Film Departments. For all of us, it is a pleasure now to welcome back to F&M Mr. Bruce Sussman. Yes, I know. Bruce was telling me before he spent a lot of time in the former incarnation of this building. Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's good to have you back at FNM.
Four Richards had their first campus performance. We performed a lot of places off campus, but the first campus performance was in this hall, only the stage was back there. And on Parents' Day in 1970.
Oh, the first performance.
Yeah. And on this campus.
So, tell us a little bit about your career at F&M and how it helped bring you to where you are today.
Well, I took liberal arts education at its word. And I was supposed to be a lawyer. I came here. Oscar Hammerstein actually was a lawyer. He graduated law school, and instead of going into practice, he wrote Shogun. Which I think was the right choice. I was supposed to be a lawyer, and I was supposed to major in government. They still call it that?
Yes.
And I took some government courses, and I liked them just fine, and I did well. But I just said, we're talking about the rest of my life here, and I wasn't sure. So I just started sticking a finger in a lot of different pies. I took a religion course that I loved. I took a geology course that I liked. And then I took two courses that just run the changes on my world. I took Ed Brubaker's Shakespeare Survey, and I took Hugh Galt's Intro to Music. I went, holy cow. This really just was, I said, this is it. This is what I want. Problem was, there was no drama department, and there was no music department. No music major, no drama major, no music major. There was the drama professors were part of the English department at the time, and Hugh Galt was a one-man band. Diagnothian Hall, the second floor of Diagnothian was the entire music department. So I thought I would transfer out and, go to Colgate or Williams or Bucknell or someplace that had programs I was looking for. And I went into Yuval's office and said to him what I just said to you. And he said, well, how about this? He said, why don't I resurrect 2 courses that are in the catalog but haven't been taught for a long time? And I'll create basically a music major for you. How can I say no? And that's what we did. And it changed my life. There's one specific way that this place changed my life. I was at one of these courses that Hugh created for me was advanced music theory, and part of the course was ear training. Do you do that? And it's hard. it's hard. And it started very simply at the beginning of the year, a melody. And for those of you who don't know, he would play something at the keyboard or drop a needle on the record, tell me what key it was in, but without any visual aid, I would have to notate. So just relying on what I heard. And it got more difficult as the year went on, adding harmony, there's that word again, and so on. And then one test, he gave me 10 samples, like number 6 or 7, he dropped a needle on the record, and it was the cast album from a show that had just opened on Broadway called Company, written music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim, book by George Furman. I had seen the show and bought the cast album and introduced Hugh to it. We were both mad for it. We thought this was just a new day in musical theater. And I was delighted to hear this cut. So he dropped the needle on the record, and I notated it, and I hand the paper in, I get it back, 9 right, 1 wrong. The one he marks wrong is the Sondheim cut from Company. And I went, no, that's right. And he said, no. He said, you're hearing the melody going up to the tonic, and it in fact only goes up to the 7th. For those of you who know do, re, mi, or solfege, I heard do, and he heard ti. I said, no, Hugh. I said, it's going up to the tonic. He said, no, it's going up to the 7th. We played the record, we both listened to it. He's hearing the 7th, I'm hearing the tonic. He said, the score's not published, there's only one way to settle this. I'm writing a letter to the composer. So he wrote a letter to Stephen Sondheim, care of the Alvin Theater, where Company was playing in New York. True story. 10 days later, we get this beautiful Tiffany stationery back, Stephen Sondheim, with his address, and it reads, and I quote, Dear Professor Galt, I can't tell you how flattered I am that any melody of mine is being analyzed in the music theory course, but I'm very sorry to inform you you were wrong and your student was correct. Well, never to be one to pass on an opportunity, I wrote the only fan letter of my life. It is still the only fan letter I've ever written, to Stephen Sondheim. Now I had his address. And 10 days later, I got a beautiful piece of Tiffany stationery back. And he said, the reward for your insolence is, I have a new show opening on Broadway at the Winter Garden. It's called Follies. If you can get yourself to New York on April 4th, I'll leave 2 tickets for you for opening night. I thought I was hallucinating. And I went up there and went to opening night, and the tickets were there, and the usher took us down the aisle, 8th row center. Sitting on my right was Danny Kaye, sitting on my left was Ethel Merman. And I turned to, my cousin Ronnie was my date, and I turned to her and I said, Ronnie, I'm 20 years old, and if I die tonight, I've lived a full year. And then Follies unfolded in all of its Proustian fabulousness. And Steve and I met, and that relationship became instructional both directly and by example, and I became a writer as a result of that. So that all happened because Hugh Gault dropped a needle on a record on the 2nd floor of Guy Gothian Hall of Franklin Marshall College.
Well, I have to say, first of all, I want to thank you for dramatizing the point of how valuable the study of musicianship is. I try to make this point to my students all the time in that class, that this is one of the most important things that you can do as an aspiring musician, an aspiring professional I'm also glad to hear you convey that it was possible for somebody like the great Chief Dog to be wrong. So for those of you in my classes, when I screw it up, there's precedent for that.
And that didn't happen very often. And he still maintained, even after the letter, that they were singing out of tune, and that's why he was
Well, so you mentioned musicianship, and one of the things that I'm interested in is the other kinds of courses that you took, either within the music department or elsewhere in Franklin Marshall, that prepared you for the career that you went on to have as a songwriter and as a writer of theatrical text.
Shakespeare, 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 Shakespeare. There were 2 Shakespeare courses offered at the time. Ed Brubaker taught both of them, the Shakespeare Survey. I brought the text. I brought my book, just in case we wanted to do it again. And then later on, for English majors, again, there was no drama department. For English majors, there was the Advanced Shakespeare Seminar, where one play was scrutinized for the entire semester. And the year I took it, it was Othello. So Shakespeare's genius, it's almost ridiculous to talk about it because it is just so evident on every page and every line. Those who claim that someone else wrote the plays don't understand the nature of genius. It changed my world, and it is distinctly musical. There is something about the structure of Shakespeare that is inherently musical, which is why he wrote so much music in his plays, and why music was such an important part of his plays. Those 2 factors, had there been 15 Shakespeare courses, I would have taken all 15 of them. So that, and certainly everything that he taught me composition and orchestration, and I knew nothing. And I came out of here with a music major, and I beg to differ, the first music major graduated in 1971, not 1987.
So far you've talked about the studying of music, etc., but you also performed here.
I did.
And you actually founded, which I find amazing, a very successful student organization. I've been working with a number of student organizations over the years. They often last for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and then they just sort of fade out. But your Poor Richards are still here today.
Yeah. So
what inspired you to do this? How did it come about?
Chutzpah. Is that Fred Owen? Hi, Fred. Fred, you were in the first co-ed group or the second year of the co-ed group? First?
We rehearsed secretively.
Yes. Yeah, it was all, everything about the Poor Richards was illegal. We received, again, this was through you, when I made the commitment to music, theater, whatever, it had consequences. I got cut off from home. And so I had to go to work. And I worked as a waiter at the Host Farm on Route 30. Is that still there? And I also got a work award, I don't know if I have them anymore, where students who, for financial aid, can work in a department. And I worked in the music department. So I was used, he never had a secretary. He was literally a one-man band, so I became the secretary. And this letter came in from Goucher College in Maryland. And Goucher apparently had, it was an all-women's school then, I don't know if it's co-ed now. And they apparently had a festival, an annual festival, what they call college singing. And groups like the Whiffenpoos from Yale and the Tiger Tones from Princeton would come down for this festival of singing done in their big auditorium. So this letter said, hi, we have this festival, and we were wondering, is there a group at Franklin and Marshall? And if there is, we'd like to invite them. So there wasn't, and never had been. And so he was about to throw the letter out, and I went, wait a minute. And he said, why? He said, the concert's in February, this is November. Even if you pulled something together, it's not going to be any good by February. I said, well, hold on. I said, maybe we can do something. He said, he gave me the letter, he said, go. Went home, pulled out my electric typewriter, and dear so-and-so, yes, there is a group at Franklin. Then it occurred to me, they better have a name. So And they're called the Poor Richards. And we'd love to attend your, be a part of your program. Sent the letter off, and then I said, okay, big shot, now you got to pull it together. And we did. And we went down there in February, and that was, by the way, the F&M website and the Poor Richards site is wrong about this. There were 8 of us. It was an octet of men. They weren't necessarily from the Glee Club. Some of them were, but some of them were not. And then the following year, the school went co-ed, and we expanded to 14, Fred? I think it was 13 on stage and 1 pianist, so it was 14. We went down to Goucher that year, and we tore the roof off the place. It was great. Did I think it was going to go on forever and become the Baker's Dozen or the Wolf Proofs? Absolutely not. But it sure has survived, and I'm delighted to have made that contribution. So.
You mentioned F&M going co-ed.
Yeah.
You had applied to and been accepted to, and you began your education at an all-male school. What was that like to experience the transition?
A return to normalcy. I thought it was so weird. I thought it was so weird to be in a school with just men. It just felt odd. But everybody, there was some cachet about, the Ivy League, all men's schools and the Seven Sisters and all that. So it just seemed like the thing you were supposed to do if you were smart and got into a good school and all that. But it made no sense to me. And then when they announced, and there were people around back then in the faculty and administration who approached this pending coeducation like Y2K. Remember that? And I said, what is everybody getting so upset about? I mean, what is really going to change? And in terms of the Poor Richards, I saw it as an opportunity because there was so much more material that we could say if we had women. You don't do love songs unless you're going for comedy or some social statement that they weren't making in 1967. So I was delighted. And one other footnote, Poor Richards became the first coeducational group on this campus because we auditioned in orientation. And on the first day of classes, we were a group and we were coeducational.
Let's talk about harmony.
Yeah.
This has been your baby and your love for the last several years. Tell us why harmony, and tell us about harmony before we look at it.
Sure.
For it.
Harmony is a musical that I wrote with Barry. I wrote book and lyrics. When I say book, I'm sure many of you know, but perhaps some don't, because someone once asked me, where can I buy the book? A book to a musical is basically the play. As I explained to people, there are 3 written elements to a musical. There are two written elements, music and words. But there are 2 forms that the words take. Words that are sung, lyrics, and words that are spoken, the book. The book is actually larger than that. It's the architecture of the piece, it's the characters, it's the narrative drive, the mission statement of the show. All of that is in the book. I wrote book and lyrics, Barry wrote music. It all happened because in 1991, over my morning coffee, I was reading the New York Times, and there was a review of the documentary that was playing down at the Public Theater, Shakespeare Festival downtown. They have a little screening room there for art films. And there was a photograph, which we're going to show you in a little bit, of 6 young men, hair brilliantined and white tie and tails. A very compelling photograph, clearly 1920s, 1930s. And then a review of this documentary and a headline that had several words in it that I thought I needed help with. It read, Eberhard Fechner's epic documentary, Comedian Harmonists at the Public. Eberhard Fechner, who's he? Comedian Harmonists, what an odd pairing of words. And then I read this very compelling review of this documentary. Cold, April, rainy night, I went down to the screening room and endured 4 hours of German documentary making with subtitles. Not, well, with all due respect, not my way to normally spend a Tuesday night. And I was, as the British say, gobsmacked. I couldn't believe what was unfolding before my eyes. This story, why didn't I know about it? Why doesn't anybody know about it? It was an extraordinary story. And though it had a daunting array of characters, I thought this might be the one that Barry and I had been looking for. We've been talking about writing a musical for years. I'd written shows with other people, but never with him. And I went to a phone booth, remember phone booths? And on Lafayette Street, and I called him. I live in New York. He was in California, which answers the question why we continue to work with each other after 42 years. And I said, I think I found it. And I blathered into the phone what I just saw. And he took the collaborative leap of faith, which one must do, and that's the real reason why we've been working together for 42 years. And he said, I don't know what you're talking about, but go get it. And I got on a plane and flew to Berlin. So this is what I saw. I saw a story about 6 diverse young men. The Greek definition of the word harmony, long before it was applied to music, is the coming together of diverse elements into a unified synthesis. So what occurred to me right away is that this piece was speaking to harmony in a much broader sense than just musical harmony. Anyway, these 6 extraordinary young men in terrible times. It's Germany between the wars. Record hyperinflation, a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a slice of bread. I just found a photo of a postage stamp used to mail a postcard back in the inflation for 1 billion with a B marks. 1 billion marks to mail a postcard. Massive unemployment. Germany was brought to its knees by the Versailles Treaty. Social unrest, political unrest, periods where 12 months go by and there are 13 different governments. The country is just a disaster. And amidst this, these 6 young men from all strata come together to create a musical group. Let me tell you who they were. They were a Bulgarian singing waiter, a German doctor, a self-taught musical prodigy, a Polish rabbi, an Italian opera singer, and a whorehouse pianist. And they sang, they rehearsed in abandoned subway stops because the acoustics were good. And then after a year or two, they rose to the street and sang for pennies in alleys. They got their first gig performing in a club as backup for someone else, and they were discovered and had a meteoric rise to international fame. They made over a dozen films. They sold millions of records at a time when the recording industry was in its infancy. They performed with the greats of their day, Marlene Dietrich, Josephine Baker. Then in 1933, at the height of their success, the first successful government is elected. Unfortunately, it's National Socialists, the Nazis. Several of my group members are Jewish, several are not. What I just described to you is the first act. How they confront this head-on collision with history is our second act. Yeah, we have a little bit of a clip. Yeah, let me set it up while you set it up. You're about to see what we call a press package. This show ran at the Atlanta, the Alliance Theater in Atlanta, and then the Amundsen Theater in Los Angeles. And each theater put together in various stages of the run packages that they give out to the press during rehearsal, during previews, opening night. This is the opening night press package from the Amundsen Theater in Los Angeles. They interviewed the cast and Barry and me in the afternoon, and they got reactions from people at the opening night, and then they sent it out to the entire press. You're going to recognize several people, but a couple you may not who are speaking. Michael Feinstein, some of you may know. Michael is a terrific singer, a nightclub performer primarily, but also a great champion of the Great American Songbook, which he learned about because he was Ira Gershwin's secretary for many, many years. He's speaking. A singer-songwriter actress from your generation, Sarah Nimitz, and then an interesting fellow who I didn't know was there and was introduced to later. You'll see him, he's wearing a beige jacket, and he comments on the show. His name is Richard Sherman. He and his brother, Robert Sherman, wrote, among other things, Mary Poppins. They were Disney's favorite songwriters. And if you saw the film Saving Mr. Banks, he and his brother are actually characters in the movie in their younger selves. And he was there and said some lovely things about the show. So this is the opening night press packet from the Amundsen production of Harmony. This show is about the quest for harmony in what turned out to be the most discordant chapter in human history.
And that's what kept us going.
Yes! First there was harmony, unforgettable harmony.
They were the Beatles of Germany. They were Take Six. They were the Backstreet Boys. They were huge. And we had never heard of this group. They were funny, too.
Why we didn't know the story is the story.
When it starts, take my hand, and whether it's through hell or to the promised land.
The story about the Comedian Harmonists is an extraordinary one that most people don't know. Barry has compared them to the Backstreet Boys or something like that today to give people a perspective, but in Germany they were matinee idols, if you will. And they became victims of the Nazi regime because several of the members were Jewish. And this musical tells the story of what happened.
This is our time, this is our time. This is our time, this is our time. This is our time, this is our time.
They were a humongous group over there. Anyone in Germany still knows about them. The history of the group could not cross the borders because of how terrible the climate of the world was there back then.
It's very, very moving, kind of sad and emotional and yet beautiful and uplifting.
I really believe this is going to be on a par with Fiddler on the Roof. It has that kind of drama and impact and emotion.
Every song is so glorious and so beautiful.
Came here expecting really great music, but I didn't know the story would be so touching.
Every single word from now
That song, Where You Go, is built on the Chopin E minor prelude, Opus 28, if you more, I think it is. It just came to me when you were, I forgot about that. So, next.
How did you take this, what is the process of taking this documentary that you saw that intrigued you and connecting with Barry Manilow, which you have already had there? What's the process that takes this kernel of an idea all the way to a production like this?
It's in this case, it's like a 15-year-long pregnancy. If the documentary, for all of its 4 hours of information, I knew was just the beginning. I knew there was even another, a larger story. And the documentary, maybe it's because I don't speak German, the documentary also had a coolness about it. These were horrific times, and there was almost a matter-of-factness about it in the presentation. I think it was the documentarian's choice. And I said, I have to get to it. I know that this lead character, the Polish rabbi, lived the longest, so harmony is a memory piece told through his memory. And has a major, forgive the highfalutin terms, but a major Proustian element to it. I knew there was something else there. So I got on a plane and went to Germany. And we hired a frontman to scout locations for us that were important to the Comedian Harmonists story. His name was Michael Kucharski. And I met him at the Interconti in Berlin. And he took me around, and I met a fan of the group who was a professor of economics at the University of Berlin, who was Peter Chada, his name was. And he had something called the Comedian Harmonists Archives, which in fact were 2 boxes under his bed. But he pulled out those boxes, and I had a field day. It was great stuff, everything from arrangements to passports to letters all the film was destroyed. There's 40 feet of film, I believe, and he had it, and I saw that. So that began the process. But then I had all this stuff laying before me, and then I said, what part of the story am I telling it, and how are we telling it, and why? But what I said in the opening there, what I call the spine line, that came to me very quickly. This show is about the quest for harmony, and what turned out to be the most discordant chapter in human history. That I put on. Remember if you used to go to the laundry, they put shirt cardboards to keep your shirt when they folded them? I wrote that on a shirt cardboard and put it on my desk. And whenever I got lost, I looked at that and said, that's what it is. I'm told Bill Clinton had, it's the economy, stupid. This was my, it's the economy, stupid. And then I had two big personal questions I had to answer. Is there a moral imperative to tell this story, given that so much worse happened to so many others? And did I have the moral authority to tell it? And for that, I sought the counsel of two survivors. And I met with them for over a year. And then after about 3 years of what I just described to you, I started to write. And there have been about 40 drafts. So, and the same happened with the score. We knew that this is all original music. We could have used, it could have been a jukebox musical, used the original Comedian Harmonists material and plug in what we call book songs, which are songs sung in the situation of the scenes. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to write an entirely original show. So Barry had an awful lot of homework to do about recreating the Comedian Harmonist style, and Marlene Dietrich's a character in our show, and creating the Marlene Dietrich sound. And then the book songs drew from, we decided, continental European music of the period and the classics. Given that the nickname of one of the characters is Chopin, that's how that happened. I introduced Barry. Barry's conservatory trained. He went to Manhattan School of Music and then Juilliard, but he doesn't have a lot of musicology under his belt. So he turned to me for that, and I had Hugh Galt under my belt. So I had all the ammunition I needed. So I played Onager and Poulenc and those guys for him, and he gobbled it up. And that's what our score is.
I think, though, that you've talked about how you used the historical context in the creation of the musical, but I've heard an interview where you said that you really don't want it to be seen as a Holocaust.
Oh, no.
And so, how did that thinking? You talked to survivors, so how did that thought come about, or how did you see that danger coming?
Well, I knew that this had to be a musical that took place in the approaching storm, or it could not be written. That if this were a Holocaust musical, this Jew wasn't going to write it. So it had to be approaching storm. And the story seemed to tell me it was approaching storm because they came to an end in 1935. Well, 1935 is a year before the Berlin Olympics, when the world came to Berlin, Jesse Owens, to celebrate the Olympics, and then 3 years before the first historical event of the Holocaust, Kristallnacht in November of 1938. So that was very, very clear to me. One of the survivors that I spoke with, her name is Dr. Maria Rosenblum, teaches at Hunter College. I took a course. I took her Holocaust Studies course. And her family, she's a Polish Jew, her family was rounded up and sent to a ghetto. And she alone in her family had the wherewithal to say, this is not going to a good place. And she fled the ghetto and basically was underground for the remainder of the war. But she heard one day that her family had been rounded up in the ghetto and were going on a transport. So she gathered her worldly possessions, which was a gold watch and 2 bottles of vodka, and went down to the train station and bought back her parents and 2 siblings for 2 bottles of vodka and a gold watch. And she said to me she was never so glad that the Germans so devalued life. So I said to her, I said, Maria, I said, I'll deal with can I tell this story, but can this story be told? And I met with her in like 94, 95, and she said, for 50 years, since the liberation of Dachau, for 50 years, the only moral imperative was the 6 million. It took us 50 years not even to understand it. How can you understand it? It took us 50 years to just accept that it happened. She said, now the other stories will be told. She said, so yes, there is a moral imperative to tell this story. And boy, was she right. Right around then, these stories started tumbling out about the Swiss art and all of the other stuff. It just all began to unfold. And that was a revelation for me, and I was very happy to have her advice. So, yeah.
When I was listening to how you described the emergence of the Poor Richards, there's a person who sits down and starts a musical group.
Yeah.
Is there an echo here?
Write about what you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, having said that, there have been other stories about musical groups that I've rejected. That alone wouldn't have done it for me. And I would never, although it was a tumultuous time, to which Fred will attest that we were performing here at FNM with Vietnam and everything else going on. You can't compare the two. But I knew that world. I knew what it was like for basic strangers to come together and find a bond through music. A very intimate bond. So that helped, but all the other stuff was what really spoke to me. But there's been no question there's something there.
One of the parts of the story that I find so fascinating that the play, the script really seems to dig into is the agonizing choices they had because of their privilege, because they were touring Europe and the United States, about whether to stay in Germany, when they come back, when the Nazi regime is beginning to implement anti-Jewish laws. Where did that part of the story come from in your digging through these boxes and through this storytelling?
What I love about
it really resonates with that era.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's my favorite thing about the piece. What I love about the theater, and I think the theater does better than any other art form, is that immediacy between what happens here and what happens there. And Michael Greif, who was the artistic director of the La Jolla Playhouse and has since directed Rent and Next to Normal on Broadway. Michael was the artistic director the very first time we put Harmony on its feet. He came up to me, he said, what I love about this show is that scene after scene, you're inviting the audience to say, what would you do? What would you have done? This happens. It has these consequences. What would you do? The Nuremberg laws come down. You're a Gentile, you're married to a Jewish woman. What would you do? That constant back and forth is, I think, very compelling and what I love most about the theater. I hope Michael is right. I'm glad you had that response. That's what I love about it. Because I was constantly, for me, I think I write more often to answer questions that I have about certain things. I constantly wondered, what would I do? There's a climactic scene, I don't want to give it away, that takes place on a train for our lead character. It's an unthinkable situation, and it was very difficult to write, and I had to constantly say, what would you have done? Or at the very least, what do you hope you would have done? You know, would your better angels have guided you? And I really think it's a unique time in human history. It's an absolutely unique period in human history.
I want to move in sort of a different direction.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the process of writing songs. You've been partnered up with Barry Manilow in writing songs for 40 years now. And I think this is something that some of our music students would be very interested in. You can write a song yourself, and you have to do lyrics and the music yourself. But of course, there are innumerable great, very famous songwriting duos. I'd love to hear a bit about the process of doing that. When you work with Barry Manilow, do you have, is there a specific process that you go through each time? Does it change each time? Does it depend on the song?
There's a range in the process, but it seldom goes outside that range. Richard Rodgers of Rodgers and Hammerstein was once asked what comes first, music or lyrics, and he always said the deal. Fortunately, Barry and I don't have to worry about that. I've written with many collaborators. My relationship with Barry has endured so long because the one thing that I know we do as well as anybody else is that we know how to collaborate, which is a very difficult thing for most people to do. And by the way, harmony is about that also. It's a show about collaboration. What is great about our collaboration, and has been absent from many others, is that we both know you don't kill a bad idea. You let it live, because a good idea will often emerge from it. And what most people will do in that situation, go, oh, that's terrible, no, and then you shut down. You're not inclined to keep thinking in the way that you were thinking. So we do a lot, most of our work is before we write. It's less true for pop songs, but still true. But for theater songs, and that, by the way, is where Barry always wanted to be. He started out as a theater writer, and this pop thing, as I call it, was a very annoying but profitable detour. He gets very upset when I say that. Mandy, just got in the way. Just got in the way. But we will sit down and say, what is this song about? What does it have to accomplish? What do we know that we didn't know at the end of the song? And we'll talk all about that. Then we'll talk about musical style. In the case of that one, Where You Go, the Chopin piece, Barry had a huge hit record early on in his career that was based on a Chopin prelude. Could It Be Magic was based on the C minor prelude. And we wondered, is this time to do another one of those? Because we have a character whose nickname is that, and it's his wife singing the song. So we started talking about that. And then we'll both push the other to go first. I'll say, well, do you have a musical idea? And he'll say to me, well, do you have a title or do you have a phrase? And we'll have that little struggle. And then somebody comes up with something. And if it's the title or a musical idea, he'll take just that and begin to compose. Or if he has a musical idea, he'll give me that little phrase and I'll start to write. In the case of harmony, my first draft, because I was the book writer and lyricist, I imagined where the 18 songs were and what they were going to be. And when I got to them, instead of writing the songs that didn't exist, I created a stage direction. She sits on the bed and she sings Where You Go, and just in dialogue, not in any lyrical context. So I sent him that just for him to, here's the piece, Barry, what do you think of it? And he sent me back 17 melodies. 14 of them are in the show. So that's the process. Pop songs, it's a little different. I write very strange pop songs. Comedian Harmonists is a very weird pop song. And I didn't know how to do it. To show you how smart I was, Barry got a record deal. In his first album, he said, come on, we'll write the album. I said, no. I didn't know anything about it. And then the second album, largely because of the success of the first, I said, well, maybe I can rethink this. But he was smart about it. He had a very specific idea. And he said to me, write a scene first, and the song will come from the scene. So the page wasn't blank anymore. And that's what I do to this day. I can't look, Diane Warren, great pop writer, until she gets up every day and writes a song. I'd kill myself. I can't imagine doing that. But what I do when he's doing an album or we're writing a song for Dionne Warwick or somebody else, we need a song for Dionne. That's all you get. So the page is totally blank. So I sit down and write a scene. And then there's a song. And then I throw the scene out and the song lives. So I'm not, don't tell anybody, but I'm not really a pop writer. I don't know how to do it. So.
You referenced a couple of musicals, Showboat, which certainly set the pace for musical theater for quite a while. And then you said when you heard Company, you felt it was a new day in musical theater. Where do you think this show falls in the line of musical theater tradition?
Thank you for asking that. And I didn't know you were going to, so there's a moment at the end of Act 1 of Harmony. This is what we call an author's seat. We don't expect anybody in the audience to get it. It's just there for the author and the cast and everybody else. There's a character, the Bulgarian singing waiter. His name is Lesh. And he's the most, in a way, naive and also the most enthusiastic about this incredible fame and fortune that has befallen him. And he was a waiter, from a little he's reading all these telegrams that they have. They arrive in New York and they perform at Carnegie Hall, and they're getting all these telegrams, and he reads them from Fiorello LaGuardia and Fanny Brice and Will Rogers and Gypsy Rose Lee. All of those people had musicals written about them. And it was always my concept for the show that the first act of this show was a golden age musical that would have been written about the Comedian Harmonists had the events of the second act not occurred. So this show travels a journey from golden age traditional musical theater storytelling to something very different. Now some people have trouble with that. They like one consistent through line. I love it about the show. I think that's one of its smartest elements. My favorite review of this show, and I read reviews only months after the fact, was from in Los Angeles from an arts. Well, I have a new favorite review. It's the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. But my favorite review prior to that was from a very fancy arts magazine in Southern California that said, "This is a modern musical that has its feet firmly planted in the golden age." And that is exactly what I had in mind. That's exactly what I intended.
Sure, so let's hear from folks in the audience who would like to ask Mr. Sussman some questions. There's a microphone we can put down in the front if people want to use the mic, or just stand and we can call on you and just project and then we can hear you speak loud again. Or come on up to the front of the side if you would like to use the mic. I think students, as always, are encouraged and invited to ask any kind of question.
Okay, this is a Sept. This is my college roommate. And he's probably going to say something that's going to embarrass me.
No.
I can speak without a microphone.
Yeah.
I just want to. Bruce and I met freshman year. We were on Schneider South, second floor. I was next to the phone booth, so that every time Bruce had to make a call, I was listening. Second year, I moved off campus, and Bruce became my roommate on Pine Street for 2 years. And then I got married and moved upstairs, and Bruce was downstairs.
And he stole my dog.
I watched Bruce in the creative process, and this is very sincere. I watched Bruce as he created the Four Richards. My voice wasn't good enough to even follow.
And you had klutz, you couldn't move.
But by the end of his practice, the dog could sing the Four Richards routine. I watched Bruce start at midnight. We shared a number of classes together. He would start at midnight on a paper. First draft, finish at about 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, turn it in. I would have worked for weeks. Bruce did first draft and he would get an A. So I just want you to know, something hit a chord with Bruce here that ignited him, that enthused him, that engaged him, and I watched it as an observer, and I'm proud to say that this thing today got us reunited after a long time.
35 years.
And it's been a while, and I'm thrilled to say I'm a friend of Bruce Sussman. So
thank you, Brett Harwood.
Mr. Sussman, my name is
Bruce.
My name is Barry, and I'm a senior in Four Richards. And this is Jason Boyask. He's a sophomore, junior. He's an old man. He's a junior. We just wanted to say thank you so much for creating a group that's allowed us to express ourselves throughout my college career, giving us a chance to become a part of a family that's grounded in a musical tradition. It's really been special. I wanted to thank you so much for that. We all did in Four Richards. So thank you very much.
Thank you for keeping it alive.
Oh, it's a pleasure, and it's going to go on forever because we love it so much.
Great.
Maybe beneficial later in life, things to keep in mind. things that might have helped you with collaboration? Just what did you learn from Four Witches that's helped your career?
Well, I joked about chutzpah, but I do think that you are not diminished as an artist if you self-promote. There's an awful lot of talented people out there, and you can't wait for them to come to you. You have to make your own good luck and your own good fortune. And at the risk of being pushy, just go ahead and do it. And now, your world is so different from the one that I knew with the internet and YouTube and everything else. You got to put yourself out there. And at first, I didn't even tell you half of the ridiculously pushy things I did when I was here. But and I look back on it and I wince sometimes. But I also realized, well, there was nothing here, and I had to make something for myself in order to leave here with a leg up, and that's what I did. So I encourage people to do that. Don't think that because it's a pursuit of the arts that somehow means you have to be passive. You have to be aggressive.
Thank you very much.
Director friend of mine have a deal that if he ever sees me perform, just kick me in the head.
Any other questions? Stand up, sure. Or stand.
I don't have to walk all over there, but I'll just stay here. I'm Fatu. I'm from Brooks College House, and the question that I have is about, like, obviously nothing comes cheap. When you are doing a project, you have to find people who are going to fund it, and how can you, I guess, convince them to support the idea and the vision that you have. And I'm a little bit interested in all the work that you do, especially with your harmony. How do you convince people to, I guess, help you put this vision out there to finance it?
It's certainly true of my field, and I suspect it's true of a lot of fields. It's a lot easier for people to say no than yes. We are in the process right now, after these two productions were designed, to bring the New York power players to Atlanta and to Los Angeles to say, are you interested in getting involved with us and raising $8 to $10 million, which is obscene, and bring this show into New York. I'm very pleased to tell you that, I can't tell you too much, but I'm very pleased to tell you the answer to that question is they said yes. And we are moving forward. As I always warn people, there are many more ways for this to go wrong than right. My classmate and colleague, James Lapine, is in the same field. He directs, a little different, but we talk about this all the time. That it is, when you present something to someone, most of the time the reaction is going to be like this, because you're asking them for a lot. I'm asking someone to raise $8 or $10 million, and I'm asking someone to work very, very hard to get this thing up. Why would you want to do that? There's only one really good reason to do it. You like it, and you want to be a part of it. So my job, to answer your question, is to help them like it and to be a part of it. And then after that, go raise $8 million. It's rough, but it's true. Forget about this show and the ridiculous finances of Broadway. It's true on any level at all. When Barry and I were writing jingles together, it was about how do we get them to make it theirs, to make it a project that they want to be a part of, and then use us to write this jingle. Barry was brilliant at it. He would go into a recording studio to make a demo, and we had $5 to make a demo, and that sounds like it's going to be piano and a singer, and he'd see a timpani in the corner of the room, and he'd bring the timpani out and do some hits on the timpani at the end of the third bar or something, and suddenly it came alive, and they thought we were geniuses. I don't think our jingle was any better than anybody else's, but we got the gig. The creative process process for you never stops. It doesn't stop with the writing. It keeps on going and going, and unfortunately, there's a business part of it. And the arts are still business, no matter what facet it is. So it is you're always auditioning in a way, and people will say no a lot, and you have to have a very thick skin about it. To give you an example, my favorite television show is Mad Men. It was turned down by everybody. Everybody. AMC, the network it's on, they never had an original series prior to that. It put them on the map. But everybody turned it down. I think it's the finest piece of dramatic writing on television these days. So they heard no a lot. You cannot be daunted by that. People are going to say no all the time. They're going to say no when you commit to a career in the arts. They're going to be afraid. They think that they have your best interests at heart. It's going to be scary to them. They are not the architects of your future. They are not the guardians of your happiness. If you say yes, you have to go for it.
Still have time for one, two more questions. Yeah, please.
My name is Luke Mangle. I'm a sophomore here, and I'm in Professor Bessel's German class. And I know learning the language has some cultural difficulties on its own, the way that you transfer to English and things like that. Having little German experience before that, how hard is it writing it, not just across time, but across cultures from like the German to English they do?
I have no German experience, and I actually left graduate school of music because of that, because I had to learn, and my language learning curve collapsed. I just couldn't do it. Yeah, well, I mean, I was just too old. I was too old. And in fairness, there were other things going on. My career had begun to take off and all that. Whatever German I needed to read, I hired someone to translate for me. I actually hired an NYU student to translate several chapters of the book that actually was a manuscript. It was an unpublished book that I found, and I had him translate it. When there is a choice, though, when you're writing English to be German, in other words, in the conceit in our show is that everybody's speaking German. So then you have to decide, well, do they have accents or do they not have accents? And the conceit we have is that when they're speaking English, for example, when they're in New York or London, they have German accents because they're speaking English. But when they're speaking German, they do not have accents. So and that was a decision I made with my director over the course of rehearsals. But no, I don't speak a word of German. I speak Yiddish a little bit. There's some closeness there.
We have time for one last question.
Yeah. The naughtier the better.
So you studied music.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and with Professor Gall, so do you ever tell Barry, well, this note isn't quite right, or do you ever look at your lyrics and say, well, this word, isn't quite right?
All the time. And first of all, I don't compose because when I came to the city and I got involved in the BMI Music Theater Workshop, which is a great program if anybody is interested, it's still going on. I instantly found that there were so many others who did it better than I did. And that was one of the hard questions I had to ask myself. What do you do the best? And I found that answer pretty quickly. But with Barry, one of the reasons, why I think we've endured, he knows how to write a lyric, and I know my way around, B-flat major. So we constantly help each other out. There was a song in the first act of Harmony, my two friends down here know it, a song where the German doctor, he begins to reveal the first of many secrets. And the first one is that he's in fact stinking rich. And that he's supposed to be a doctor, and his parents don't know that he's in this group. And it's kind of a coming out song where they help him tell his parents that he's not going to be a doctor, he's going to be a singer. And talk about saying no. And I knew it was in 3 verses. I knew what the first one was. I knew what the third one was. I knew the setup. I knew the payoff. I didn't know what the middle was. I said, Barry, I'm stuck. He thought about it for a minute. He gave me 1 sentence. Bang. I was ready to go. Similarly, in the finale of the show, he had trouble in the middle of a song called Stars of the Night. He was just falling all over himself. chord progression. And he went, oh, and then he changed it, and then he did this, and then it was a back and forth. So I think that I am a musician in addition to being a writer of words has helped, and certainly true of Barry. I mean, he knows how to write a lyric, he does. So.
Thank you, Bruce. These people have been working for a year.